היישובים בלגן, מלא מחבלים, חדירות של מחבלים. אני פותח את הדלת של האמבולנס, בודק דופק, הרוג, עולה לאמבולנס, ממשיך הלאה. אני אומר, אני רוצה אנשים חיים לפנות היום.
Shalom, shalom, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Pulse of Israel here at our eternal and ancestral homeland, the land of Israel, in our beautiful, biblical, and indivisible capital, Jerusalem, since King David's time. Today, I am speaking and interviewing a close and old friend who also happens to be a movie producer who has a movie about October 7th that's coming out to be streamed online. When, Igal?
It's coming out October 1st. They'll stream on thekillingroads.com. And then it'll also stream on YouTube and X and Vimeo. We're trying to make sure that it streams everywhere in case people try to take it down. And it's coming out October 1st, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then it'll just live online. So you don't necessarily need to watch it on October 1st. You can watch it later on, whenever you have time to watch it.
Yes, I don't know exactly when this video, the interview is getting out, but it's going to come out in the next few days. But everyone, this is a very important movie to watch. And obviously, it's timed for the first anniversary to the horrendous massacre on Simchat Torah, October 7th, 2023. I just want to give everyone a little bit of background about you, Yigal, before we go into this movie about October 7th. And it's brilliant. I mean, again, I watched the movie and it's hard, very hard, like October 7th was, but a brilliant weaving of the story to get people to really internalize it and meet some of the people who survived and some of those who died. But I met Igal because years ago I produced my own movie about what I believe to be the destructive, disastrous disengagement from Gaza back in 2005. And this is actually my movie. It's right up over here, Home Game. And as a result of getting into the movie business for Israel, I met Igal. And Yigal at the time, he already had produced many movies, very talented, not just Jewish Israel related, but he produced a movie about Sderot, about the years of attacks that the families, the people, the city of Sderot was under even before 2005. And then after the disastrous disengagement from Gaza, Yigal also made a movie about that. So Yigal is extremely well placed to understand where and how October 7th even happened, because he was on top of the horrendous security and the appeasement and the allowance of Israel's security establishment, and politically how we allowed Gaza to grow into the terror launch pad that it was, that just did the horrendous atrocities of October 7th. So now, Yigal, thank you so much for coming to be on today's Pulse of Israel. It's an honor to be able to talk to you, because again, in my eyes, you are one of the most important documentary filmmakers in the Jewish world for Israel, who's been consistently getting the story out there that is not played out by the media. So thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Kind words. Not sure if they warranted, but very much thank you. Kind words. Yeah, I mean, disengage. I made a trilogy. It was Qassam, Disengaging Democracy, and then 2 years after was Banished. Because we followed what happened. We followed the people who were banished from Gush Katif and from the northern Shomron, from Chomesh. And just like you know, when I filmed Qassam in 2004, and we were talking just before you started recording, but how there was a woman named Molly, and Molly sits on her couch, and I remember this scene. She has a long cigarette in her hand. She has pink hair, and she basically says, because we recorded it on the day that this engagement was announced, which was October 26th, I think, 2004. And she says, you know, this is going to be a disaster. They're going to fire rockets at us. They're going to dig tunnels. They're going to come and kill people in their kindergartens. They're going to come and kill kids in their schools. She predicted all of this. And this was Molly from Sderot. So Mali from the road knew better than all of the Israeli politicians, all of the Israeli media, and all of the Israeli, generals. And Mali from the road isn't a unique case. Everybody in the South, uh, most people in the South knew that this day will come, unfortunately, this horrendous, horrible, horrific, genocidal day, this massacre that occurred on the 7th. And yet, everybody in the Israeli media, everybody in maybe minus a few reporters, minus maybe Channel 14, I don't know, really just overlooked it. Was always, oh, those whole people who are suffering in Gaza, blah, 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 blah. Well, those people who were suffering in Gaza, those 6,000 people woke up on Saturday the 7th with in, this one focus in mind, and that is to murder, to rape, to burn Jews, Israelis, Jews. That was it. This was the whole thing that they wanted to do. And for some reason, people keep saying Hamas, and that irritates me. I speak to people who are loved ones and everybody else, and they tell me, stop saying this, stop saying this, stop saying Palestinians, say Hamas. And they're right, it is Hamas. And they know, and they're like, we agree with you. However, everybody's saying Hamas, but it wasn't just Hamas. Let's just be honest here. It was Palestinians or Arabs who call themselves Palestinians, whatever you want to call it. Who are Hamas? Hamas are Palestinians. Who are Islamic Jihad? Islamic Jihad are Palestinians. But it wasn't just Hamas and Islamic Jihad. 6,000 meant Gazan citizens as well, who came into Israel from 120 vantage points and attacked Israelis on the Sabbath, on Simchat Torah. And they wanted to murder, rape, and burn. And also, one thing that I didn't want to touch by movie, and we have the footage, we have 8 confirmed cases, we have the visuals, and I didn't put in the movie because that was too much. Decapitation. They cut off body parts.
And
there
you
were
have the
8
footage. You
confirmed
actually
cases.
saw the footage, and because there are plenty of people say, no,
yes.
that's a lie. Israel lied about that.
Well, first of all, there's one Hamas video of them decapitating someone.
That was a foreign worker.
That's one. Wasn't a Jew, but in their mind, they thought it was a Jew.
Right.
They didn't know. But yes, we interviewed people from Magen David Adom. There was a certain junction in which bodies were brought to that junction, and there, bodies were missing limbs. So this was grotesque, and they enjoyed every single moment of it. They enjoyed every single moment. And that's another thing that people forget when you look at their videos. And this is, it's not AI. This is their own videos.
Right.
They filmed it. They filmed everything. They were so happy to film it. Every Nukhba unit of 20 to 40 on their motorcycle had a GoPro on them. And what I show in the Killing Roads is just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
Just a little bit. It's a timid version because the IDF wouldn't release the footage to us. The police wouldn't release the footage to us. The Shabak wouldn't release the footage to us. We inquired, we asked, and they were told this is an ongoing investigation, which it is, and therefore we can't release the footage. But they'll release it to Uvda or whoever, right? It all depends on how big is the broadcaster and whatnot.
But you got security footage. I saw you have plenty of security footage in the movie.
We got a lot of footage because people from the Israeli establishment had enough and uploaded stuff throughout the months. If you go to Telegram, you find all that footage.
Right.
So movies made up out of footage that we found out of Hamas and other sources from Telegram and other websites, but also from dash cams from United Hatzalah, who was kind enough to give us their ambulances. And they within that there were B-rolls for media, but they also allowed us to use other footage there. And within that, there were 50 hours of dash cam footage of every single part of that road, specifically road 232 and road 34, where they intersect. And so I went through all that 50 hours, frame by frame, and I found, you really see the barbarity and what was unleashed on that day. The burned cars, the dead bodies, the cars riddled with bullets. And I also found images of our victims,
Right.
of their cars. And that was heartbreaking.
Right.
And then we also have footage from our victims, our survivors themselves, footage that hasn't really been shown anywhere. And so putting all of that together allowed us to create a timeline and an understanding of what happened on that road from Road 34 and Road 232 all the way to Miftachim and 232. And what I'm saying is that there's more footage because I know it exists because every junction on 232 has a security camera.
Right.
We were only able to get the one that was released, was this Shah Negev in 34, that 1 minute and 50 seconds that somebody released. Also, the body that controls the roads didn't want to release the footage.
Wow.
Everything, by the way, played out on these cameras. It exists. And one day somebody else will make a better film about the roads and will show that footage.
Actually,
They
take
weren't sure.
step back with you for a second
Sure.
because again, I want people to understand this isn't a movie just of footage, and I
Mm-mm.
am taking a big guess that you did not know you were going to be making a movie about the killing roads, focused on the roads. You were going to be making a movie about what happened October 7th. That's only after you met certain survivors or family members and heard the stories that then you realize, oh my God, I have a great storyline to put together in order to bring everyone to connect with the actual people and the stories to understand the full story of what happened October 7th. So what made you figure out that you were going to hone in on the roads specifically as opposed to any of the other stories or the bigger stories?
So I think one of the major reasons is that a lot of movies are being made about Nova. And again, rightfully so. I think, by the way, I hope and encourage everybody to watch whatever movie is out there about the 7th, whether it's the Yes TV movie, whether it's Dookie Drawer's film about Nova, whether it's the new one, We Shall Dance Again, that just came out, and other films that will come out. This is important. This is the next wave of movies. Just like Shoah movies are important, this is also very important. To your question, though, in regards to the roads, I think originally Lior Cohen, who I work with for 20 plus years now, who's an amazing Israeli filmmaker, when I reached out to him, we were going to do a movie maybe about the kibbutzim, maybe about the city of Sderot. And then I read a couple of articles about what happened on the roads and that 250 people died on the roads. And so people were aware of what happened maybe in the bomb shelters, the bird bomb shelter outside Re'im with Anair, I forgot his last name, who was a hero there who threw the grenades out.
Right.
And then the bubble bomb shelter outside of Be'eri, etc., in Alumim. But nobody really focused on what happened to that guy who was riding his bike on Shabbat. What happened to the woman who was coming back from work? What happened to that family who was out for a picnic? What happened to those people who were out for a run? It was a beautiful Shabbat, right? Shabbat morning. It was nice and sunny. So what happened to those people? They'll just be lost. And so that sort of started getting me more focused on the road. I wanted to know the randomness. What happened to the life of those people who were randomly killed just because they were at the wrong place at the wrong time,
Right.
like so many others?
And I'm just going to interject for a second to help people understand what Yigal's referring to in terms of the randomness. People were literally executed just being on
Yeah.
the road, driving down the road, biking down the road. They were just in the wrong place at the wrong time because Hamas was set up with ambushes all along the road. And it comes out with the story of, again, the survivors, family members, a really beautifully put together timeline of the day based on what happened on the road that really got little attention. So forgive me
Yeah,
for.
no, and no, not at all. You're absolutely right. That's what they did. They took over every junction. They were dressed up in what seemed to be IDF
Yep,
uniform.
they look like
That
soldiers.
even, yeah, they looked like soldiers. So that sort of that made people not sure, should we slow down? And the moment they slowed down, they killed them. They executed them. It wasn't just enough, by the way, and that we bring it out in the film. It wasn't just enough to kill people. They didn't just kill people. They didn't just shoot. Okay, I shot this person. I'm going to move on. They went car by car. You see them, again, their own footage,
Yep.
car by car, making sure that people are dead. And if they're not dead, they executed them on the spot. That's what they did on the roads. And people aren't aware that that's what they did because there's the horrific stories in the kibbutzim. There are the horrific stories in Nova. All of that is there's so much you can absorb. There's so much you can take. So a lot of these other stories on the road sort of get overlooked. Not by everyone. I mean, Israeli media certainly did stories right away, and that helped us as well, kind of piece together things. But internationally, which is what I am, I don't make films for Israel. I make films for an international audience because I want people to understand what happened.
Right.
Nobody talks about that.
Right. And I was fascinated also that you were able to find, again, whether survivors or family members of survivors, and then find the footage from the
Right.
security cameras or even Hamas body cameras and put it all together so people can actually visualize that person's story in what actually happened. I mean, I'm just imagining like how surprised and shocked you might have been when all of a sudden you
Yeah.
realized that.
Yeah, no, very, very much so. I think the initial intent for the initial intent was when we realized this is going to be on the roads. Every interview had to be on the roads. I didn't want anyone except for one story, and it makes sense in the context of the story to be filmed at home and things along those lines. We had to have we had to film the movie on the roads because I wanted people to hear the roads. I want people to understand the exact spot of where everything happened. And then we were going to do. Lior had this great idea to film with a GoPro connected to the dash camera, and he rigged this thing, and we were driving up and down the road so people can feel the road. That was going to be the visual element, more artistic. But then when we interviewed Moshe Weitzman from United Hatzalah, who is an amazing man, he saved countless people on that day. He got injured October 12th from a rocket that landed beside him in Sderot because he was still saving people. But under fire, he went back and forth into Sderot, and then he was one of the first EMTs to arrive at Nova and up and down the road and really risked his life that day. So because we were featuring him, United Hatzalah gave us this folder with footage. And once I looked at their 50 hours and I realized, wait, they went on these roads. This is where the victims were murdered. I'm going to find the footage of their cars, or fortunately, in one case, the body still lying there. And it changed the entire dynamic of the movie. Because the one thing I wanted to do, and this is in no way taking a shot at any of the other movies, because they also do it in some of the movies. Some movies you are unable to do it. I really wanted to visually prove everything that's being said. It wasn't enough just to have a testimonial. Testimonials are crucial. They're important and they're needed. And any movie with a testimonial is really important. Scream Before Silence is a brilliant film. Brilliant film. Very important film. Again, also released for free. And I hope people watch Scream Before Silence as well.
That's Sheryl
Um,
Sandberg's film you're referring to?
yes. Yeah. I think everybody needs to watch those films. But moving towards that, well, once I realized I had this footage, I could visually prove everything that I say,
Wow.
which is so important because people can say I come with an agenda, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I don't hide it in the movie. I definitely come with an agenda. These Palestinians who committed these acts are terrorists. They're not freedom fighters. I'm not going to be afraid to call them terrorists like some other filmmaker because a network made me say that I can't say the word, it doesn't allow me to use the word terrorist. No, they are terrorists. Let's get it straight. They're barbaric terrorists. But one thing is, I need to visually prove what I say as a filmmaker, visually prove it. And this is what that footage helped.
Wow.
It changed the entire dynamic of the movie from probably a shorter film, which would have been 50 minutes, to almost a 2 hour film, because we could visually prove everything. There isn't one thing in that movie that we don't visually prove. Everything that they did is shown.
That's a
And,
fabulous point.
and I think that's another thing that's really important. And I know the debate back and forth, and it's an important debate because they're families. They're families, victims who are suffering and still suffering. And my heart breaks when I think about them. But, we did our best. We blurred everybody's faces. I had to watch it. I hope no one should watch the faces. We blurred everybody's faces. At some point, we blurred someone's body as well. We did our best to honor these people, but at the same time, there's a war out there of denial. There are individuals, mostly from the progressive woke left, some Jews among them, some vile, vile Jews among them, who are denying that this happened, or excuse it, or play it down, or say, oh, just an army base was attacked. Oh, there's no proof. You can't prove that this happened. You can't prove that that happened. Well, yes, you can. Yes, you can. The visuals are there, and eventually Israel will release them, and more proof will come. But right now, at this moment, at this point in time, where anti-Semitism is allowed to roam free, where the murder of Jews is glossed over by pseudo-intellectuals and these individuals who claim to be humanists, but it's okay to rape and murder Jews in their minds.
Yeah.
They demand proof. I don't do it for them. I do it so other people can see the barbarity that occurred on the 7th, which then led to Israel attacking Gaza, not in hopes of killing innocent people, but simply in hopes of eradicating these terrorists who, on the 8th and the 9th and the 10th, continue and moving forward, continually say that they will commit these barbaric acts again if given the chance.
Right.
It's actually insane. It's like the world is saying to Israel, okay, so you guys should wait until they murder you again.
Yep.
But let them murder you again, and then you can attack for a couple more weeks, but then come out again, and then let them murder you again. Allow them to have their tunnels, allow them to have their whole infrastructure, let them rebuild it. My country, Canada, Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, even though after being given evidence before and after that UNRWA, this terrorist slush fund of rapists and murderers, is implicated and fully involved in the murder of Jews on October 7th, my Prime Minister here in Canada decided that my tax dollars should go back and fund this organization so they can murder and rape more Jews.
Right.
This is the denial reality that we live in. And this is why it's so crucial that information, shows like yours and other shows and movies and all of these influencers keep sharing, because this is the only way to combat these people. There's a war on the ground. There's a war in Lebanon. There's a war in Gaza. These Arab fundamentalist Islamic terrorists are legit trying to destroy the state of Israel openly. And then there's a war in the social media world, in the media, where these excusers of terror have allowed these Islamo-Nazis, because that's what they are. They're Nazis. Let's just be straight about it. Just because they wear a different hood, they are of the exact same mindset as the KKK. Kafia, KKK, white robe, it's all the same. These people are trying to, destroy the state of Israel, that's a given, but also kill Jews. In Toronto, 4 days after the 7th, I was part of a group of people that released this video. in a heavily Middle Eastern dominated part of Toronto. They had a rally. And they said this normal things from the river to the sea, which is a call for genocide, but
Yep.
okay, in English. But in
Mm.
Arabic, they said bash the Zionists' heads in, kill all the Zionists, Khyber al-Yahud, right, which refers to the massacre of Jews, to the genocide of Jews. And that's allowed. Why? Because the Toronto police can't afford a translator. So, you have this heavily Middle Eastern population protesting in the heart of Toronto with a few Kafia Karens and a few Marxist and socialist white idiots. And in one thing, they're screaming their chants in English, and then in Arabic, they're calling for the death and murder of Jews as they're walking up and down the streets of Toronto. A hate crime, by the way. A
Yep.
hate crime that doesn't get simply because, prosecuted, sorry, simply because they don't have the proper translation. And when we released the video, nobody cared even. It's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much proof you show these people, but you can't stop showing this proof
Yep.
because you need to push back against this denial. Because eventually there'll be people who aren't affiliated who will be exposed to this and go, holy crap. Okay, now I understand why Israel did what it did. Now I understand why Israel has to go into Gaza, not because they want to kill Arabs who live in Gaza, not at all, because they need to take out these terrorists. By the way, these terrorists who are using their civilian population as human shields to and having them be killed because they don't care about them, right? They don't. And everybody knows this. We can, you and I can go back and forth. They spent billions on tunnels instead of education and hospital, etc. And that's completely overlooked as well.
Right.
It's insane. It's insane. It's insane because there is this hatred. It's the same old story repackaged.
Yep.
So today you hate Zionists, you know, the progressive left, and unfortunately the Jewish left as well, the Jewish progressive ideologues from uh, various groups that claim to be for peace but really are for terrorists, allowed them to have a loophole. Don't say if you don't say Jew and say a Zionist, we're perfectly okay with it.
Right.
Insane. It's complete and utter BS. And problem is that nobody wants to call it out because in my circles, in my documentary circles, most documentarians are left. Even
Yep.
Jewish documentarians who are very pro-Israel have been silent. They've been quiet. Every now and again, they'll post something because, they know that if they post too much, they'll be canceled. They won't get funding, etc. Before we spoke today, I got an email from a certain broadcaster in town who I've gone back and forth with, who has denied funding again, even though they've played 10 of my films in the last 10 years. And so they know, it's coming, and
Well,
you'll be
they've
canceled
denied giving you funding for Killing Road, you're saying?
for another film about October 7th that I'm involved with. That is very positive, that is very hopeful. It's not like the Killing
Wow.
Roads,
And
but
even that they won't give funding for.
no, they won't. And they won't because, it's you can't be a pro-Israel filmmaker or openly pro-Israel filmmaker. But even if you're not openly, at least do something. And there's a lot of, I think, fear. And I understand that fear. I do. I mean, I'm in a position where I don't care and I never cared. And,
Yes.
you know me, I never cared. I've
Yes.
been very openly pro-Israel for years. I have no problem criticizing Israel when need be, but I've been very openly pro-Israel for years, and I'll continue to be very openly pro-Israel because I think Israel is just, and I think Israel is absolutely right. And in this war, it's a war of civilizations. It's a war of what kind of world do you want? Do you want the world led by Islamo-fascists who want to destroy everything about Western society and who want to justify murder and rape, whether it's for Jews, whether it's for Yazidis, whether it's for Christian minorities across the Middle East? Or do you want to be on the side of Western democracies and values that values freedom of speech and freedom in general
Freedom of life, freedom
and
to live.
life and freedom to live? That's where it falls down to. And people, I think, are slowly starting to understand it as well.
Right,
But when it comes to me, I just when it comes, I want to showcase exactly what happened on that day to people.
right. Now you did a fabulous job of interweaving the stories. Like even some of the survivors and the medical professionals, paramedics who were involved in saving them or finding them. And again, everyone, you should watch this movie because it's not just footage, it's hearing the
No,
stories,
it's a
interweaving the stories
documentary.
with the footage. Yeah, no, fabulous.
It's a full documentary with testimonials, and you get to know the people, and you get to go on this journey with me and with the people. And I have to warn people, it is a heartbreaking film. There isn't a moment of there isn't a moment where sometimes you have this in a documentary where you have a moment of levity or a moment of like a laugh or anything like that. Purposely done. I didn't want it because there was nothing on that day, that called for that. Um, it's a heartbreaking film, and it's graphic, it's heartbreaking. And if you're able to watch the trailer for the film, then maybe you'll be able to watch the film. None of the things that we show are done in a way just for shock value. Again, it's to prove what's being done, but it's a hard film to watch. It was a hard film to edit. It's a very hard film
Sure.
to watch.
I can only imagine after seeing it. But I wanted to ask you, like for those watching and to hopefully give them a little more reason to want to watch, can you share one of the stories of that you gave in the movie?
Yeah, we interviewed 21 people. We eventually featured nine. Unfortunately, as you know, editing movie, even now it's 115 minutes long. If some people feel it's too long. I don't. One of the stories that really strikes for me is Daniela Gandhi. It's a story that involves three people: Naor Levy, Livnat Levy, and Daniela Gandhi. Daniela Gandhi and Naor Levy were in their car making their way towards Nova. They woke up late. Naor is a very, very famous Israeli DJ. And so DJ Audio Filler is his DJ name, was. And they made their way towards Nova. And as they turned into Road 232 and Road 34, they were shot. Um, they, and luckily for them, they and it was Islamic Jihad that shot them because Naor said, and this I'll get to this part in a second, that is somebody with red bandanas, and a red bandana is I believe Islamic Jihad. So as they were shot, the car stopped eventually. They were riddled with bullets. Um, and then Naor called his mom, Livnat, who lives in Khulon, and that's the only interview that doesn't happen on the roads. And Livnat gets this phone call, and she's on the phone with her son, who at that point got out of the car and lied on the road for 52 minutes. She was with him on the phone for 52 minutes, and he sent her his exact location through WhatsApp. No EMTs, no emergency, ambulances could get to them, unfortunately. And she was with him for 52 minutes as he was dying. And Livnat never spoke to anyone in Israeli TV. We were the only one she spoke to because of
Yeah.
a good friend she has in New York who I guess convinced her, who connected us. And then Daniela's is the second half of the story because she's with Noah and she films everything
Right, she was in the car
from
with Noor. She was
in the
also
car as it was shot. So she films from her POV with her cell phone, and she doesn't film herself or Noor, but she films just the car, and it's all riddled with bullets and blood. And you hear her talk to Noah, you should breathe, think of good things, think of music. And we really kind of cut that story from three different points of view.
right.
And then, Noah unfortunately died. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for Live Not, and you see it in the movie. And then what did Daniela do? Like, how did she survive? She still had to be in that car for 6 hours until somebody finally got to her. And it wasn't somebody official. Lucky for her, um, her family member put out her story on this WhatsApp group, and this brave man from Sderot said, I'm going to get to this girl. And he jumped in his car, and then he was stopped, and the army told him, well, you can't move through, and eventually convinced the army officer there, and he gave him two other officers, and the three of them went in to the fire to rescue Daniela because they had her exact coordinates, right? She sent her exact WhatsApp coordinates.
Right. And when you say into the fire, yes, they were shot at as
Literally,
well.
they were shot at. They
In trying to
saved,
save her.
and this is the remarkable thing about the 7th, with all the screw ups. There were people, courageous people from the army, civilians, the police, EMTs, who just put their lives in danger and did everything they could to save other people's lives. That's a remarkable part of the people of Israel too.
Yep.
And one thing is that I found the footage. She tells the story about how they waved a ambulance down. So in one of the footage, as I was looking, I see a car and somebody waving. And I'm like, that can't be it. Because her time reference was a little bit slightly different. But I'm looking. Then I'm like, oh, wow. And we have the moment which the car stops the ambulance and she's taken into the ambulance and her life is saved.
Yeah.
And, it was unbelievable to see that. But again, it just shows just how horrific that day was. It was just a horrific, horrific day. And I mean, I don't have to tell anybody who's watching this how horrific that day was, but it's one story of 1,200 stories, horrible stories, that we should, we're coming on the 1 year anniversary and memorial of that horrific day. But this is the next 50 years. This is going to impact an entire generation of Israelis, of Jews. They really tried to commit a mini Shoah on that day. Had they not been stopped in Yad Mordechai, who knows where they've gotten to. They wanted to get to Ashkelon. They wanted to get to Ashdod, Rishon, Rehovot. They would have murdered as many people as they could. That's what people don't understand.
Right.
They just wanted to murder and burn and rape Jews. That's all they wanted to do. This is the mindset. This is the mindset that they have and had and have to this day. And I know it's not politically correct, and I'm not trying to be politically correct at all. I couldn't care less. This is what that mindset will constantly be. Right now I'm hearing voices as if the 7th didn't happen. What a historic moment to build peace, etc., etc. From the Israeli left. And I keep thinking to myself, how racist are you? Why don't you listen to the Arabs? There's one thing you have to say about Hamas and Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad and all of these, whatever, they can call themselves what they want, but basically different shade of terror. They say what they mean.
Yeah.
And they tell you constantly that they're going to kill you, that they'll use whatever opportunity to murder you. Why don't you listen to them? Why are you such a racist that you don't want to listen to an Arab when he tells you that they want to kill you? They
Right.
say
I think it's beautiful that you're using the term racist because it calls out how they are disrespecting the Arab Muslims by not actually listening to what they say.
Yeah. And by the way, this is not a thing where I'm saying that all Arabs are terrorists. Not at all. Before people start going, oh, he's a racist. No, not all Arab are terrorists. They're not. There's amazing Arabs out there. There are amazing Arab Israelis. There are amazing Muslim scholars and Muslim people who are opposed to this because they also know that these people will come for them. I mean, we saw it in Syria. ISIS butchered Muslims, hundreds of thousands of Muslims, you know, not to even start talking about Yazidis and Christian minorities,
Right.
but start listening to them. And then who do you make peace with? The PLO that supported this? Who do you make peace with? It's just insane. It's insane. 30 years, 30 years of Oslo have caused so much death, have caused so much death in Israel. And nobody wants to talk about that. The disengagement from 20 years ago brought forth the 7th. Yes, it was piss poor, decisions by certain governments and leaders, etc. But the disengagement was the first domino that led to the 7th. Why are we ignoring all of that? Why are people in the Israeli left starting to say it's a historic occasion? It's not. Every time Israel gives up land, every time Israel extends its hands in peace, more Israelis are murdered and die. What is the point of having peace if it's going to bring about more deaths and murder in the most barbaric ways of Israelis? Just because you can say you have peace and you can have, I don't know, a better time traveling to Europe, like I want people to start thinking about that and thinking critically about that. Just because I'm opposed to making peace with people who want to murder my family and friends doesn't mean I think peace is a horrible idea. I just think that
Makes you
you
sane.
can't have peace with these individuals who tell you that they want to murder you. And a piece of paper is worth absolutely nothing if it causes more deaths and more, barbaric actions against your people.
Yeah, and I always remind people whenever this conversation comes up, whether in discussion or arguments, I'm like, you do know that they massacred us in 1929. There were no
Yeah.
settlements in Judea and Samaria. There was no the Jewish state of Israel wasn't even established. 1929, 1936. It's like, what were their reasons then? And again, part of the story I try to tell, the story, part of the historic and modern truths is like what we're dealing with a religious war. It's not a war about land. And again, it's not all Muslims, but it exists within hundreds of millions of Muslims that believe that
I,
everyone
I,
should be
I
Muslim, Jewish state shouldn't exist.
I think people should just have honest conversations because it's so nice to be on that one side that has all the powerful slogans. It's like those idiots who wake up with their Google affirmations. Oh, I'm so deep. No, you're an idiot. It's so nice to be so shallow and not have depth and not actually talk and not actually listen, not actually be and to have some factual knowledge about what's happening and not just historic factual knowledge, current factual knowledge. I follow all of them. I wake up, first thing I do is I go on Telegrams, I go on Resistance Now, I go on Gaza Now, I go on all the Hezbollah channels. I follow every single one of them because I want to know what they're saying.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to get honest truth from Israeli television or Israeli media. I'm going to get a very skewed propaganda that's only aimed for this one. Now it's center right. It'll eventually go back to the center left after time passes. And people need to start listening to voices from the Arab world. Not all voices. There's interesting voices coming out of Saudi Arabia. There's voices coming out of the Abraham Accords. Israel isn't perfect. I'm not saying it's perfect, but people need to start listening to the Arab world and especially these Arab terrorists because October 7th can happen in an instance if they're given a chance again.
Yep.
These horrific images can return immediately if they're given a chance again.
Yeah.
And when people don't listen, this happens,
Right.
unfortunately.
Yeah, so I always tell people they should check out palwatch.org and
Yep.
memory.org. Those are two
Oh,
websites that,
memory is amazing.
yeah, they give the,
Memory is the best organization out there because, you know, they really, I mean, Memory is doing the Lord's work here in Canada, releasing all of these unbelievable, crazy imams who are preaching for hatred and murder of Jews. By the way, in
in
mosques, open
Canada.
in Canada, in English or in Arabic, openly, and nothing is done to them.
Yep.
We have hate crime laws. Nothing.
Not
You have
enforced.
not enforced at all. We have a government and a police force and etc. that has to appease a voting bloc that they've brought into this country. And so it's okay to, you know, to preach murder and hatred against Jews. It's okay to stop Jews from walking on university campuses. I always say, imagine if the KKK, I hope this is like, you know, if this is the new trend, so the equivalent, the KKK in Canada should just come with their own hoods, you know, not kafia, but their own hoods, and set up shop and stop minorities from walking on campus.
Yep, because that's
You
what
know,
they're
why
doing.
not? If this
100%.
is what now the new norm is, if you disagree with people politically, hey, you're a minority. I don't know what you're, but you look like a minority. You can't walk here because this is what they did here. But when
Yep.
it's done, and it's obviously wrong, and it's people will obviously come out against them, and these people will be arrested. But when it's done against Jews, somehow because we found that loophole Zionist, it's all halal.
Right, it's all okay. Igal, um,
Anyways, I'm angry, as you can
talking
see.
to you. What?
I am a very angry person right now.
No, you have a lot. Listen, someone who sees that much footage, and again, I told you before, like I've seen mostly all the footage out there. There was some new footage for me in the movie, but again, I saw most of it.
Yep.
But yeah, when you watch it, yeah, it's obviously makes your blood boil. Very, very upset how so many people and the establishment and the leaders, political, media, etc., just ignore reality. And here we're on the front line fighting against the biggest evil in modern times that is literally out to destroy the whole freedom-loving world, as you said yourself, and we're alone. Even our allies, even the Biden administration withholding weapons from us. And I mean, I actually just made a post today. Israel is literally fighting for America. How? Well, the Yemenite Houthis are shooting at U.S. warships. America's hardly doing anything about it. We just attacked the Houthis in Yemen. We're fighting the Houthis and in a sense fighting for America. It should be America's war. It should be the freedom-loving world's war because they're being attacked as well, not just us. We're just the front line. And yet we
Oh,
are
but
the front line for the whole freedom-loving world. And the rest of the freedom-loving world is like, we don't mind if you're destroyed. We will have an arms embargo. UK, Canada, the France, they're starting arms
yep.
embargoes against us when we
Yeah.
are on the front line to defend them. Forget about us
Well,
even
because
defending our own country.
they have to appease a voting bloc, and you know,
Yeah.
Harris has to appease her two states, Michigan and Minnesota. And but again, it boils down to a world where, you know, Jews need to start understanding who their allies are, especially American Jews. And if American Jews are watching this, you know, Jews need to start to understand that this is a very crucial election, and you have a party with, you know, people say what they want to say about Joe Biden, good and bad. There's also geopolitics involved here, and he's done his best, I think, when coherent, to try and be on Israel's side, you know, despite everything, a year going into it. There's other consideration. Israel, people who love Israel just want to have rah, 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 Israel, Israel, Israel. But there's other considerations here. He has an election that he had to win. And he has people from the progressive left, unfortunately, 30% of them within the Democratic Party who are anti-Semitic and hate Israel. Clear as day, this is their own statistics. So I understand that. But at the end of the day, you know, you're right. Israel is definitely fighting a war that is coming to the shores of the Western world. Europe, it's already there. You see it more and more in Europe every single day. And that's why there's a backlash in Europe, finally. Took them quite a few years.
Yep.
And it's coming to North America. And they never say only Israel. North America, in the state, in New York, and on campuses, they say, we hate America. We hate Israel. We're gonna, they want to bring a caliphate, all this nonsense. And the irony is that they're allowed to say all of this without fear because they live in a democratic society. By the way, the same in Israel. You're
Right.
allowed to say whatever you want. There are consequences in terms of you lose your job, and that's fine because freedom of speech doesn't mean that you don't have consequences. It's just like when I utter things, there's consequences to the things I say too. But they're allowed to say everything because they live in a free and democratic society. But what they're saying is supporting people who in an instant will take all those freedoms away from them. And
Yep.
this is the ironic and moronic reality of all of these kafir Karens, Marxist leftists who don't believe in freedoms anyways, and all these other idiots who support them, these TikTok warriors, who support them.
Right.
They don't have any understanding of what they're supporting. They're supporting a terrorist regime that would murder gays in a second, that will subjugate women to the worst of the worst. If you want proof, just look at Afghanistan. This is exactly like the Taliban. There's no difference there. And yet they're supporting these barbaric individuals.
Right.
Yeah, beats me, man. I
Well,
don't know.
Igal, thank you so much for your continued work on these really important videos, movies. Everyone should go killingroads.com. Is that the website
So
to look?
yeah, so starting October 1st, it'll be 3 a.m. in Israel. So October 1st, October 2nd, whenever you wake up, it'll go live on the killingroads.com. So it'll be on that website. And then on that website, if for whatever reason it's slow and maybe or whatever, you can watch it'll be on YouTube. Hopefully YouTube won't take it down. And you can just click on the links. They'll be on YouTube's The Killing Roads. Um, and the same with X, Twitter. It's on the Killing Roads. The Twitter handle, I believe, is the Killing Roads. But you can also it'll all be there on the website, or you can go on my personal Vimeo channel, which will also be there. So we're trying to make sure that in case someone, individuals, etc., will try to take it down, we're trying to make sure that it'll stay up somewhere.
All right, so you're going to provide me with all the links, and I'll provide them here so
Absolutely.
everyone can be able to have all of them. So that hopefully they'll all be up and working, and if one isn't, they'll be able to have the alternatives. But thank you
Yes.
so much. Continue. You're really important, and I will say holy work on not just behalf of the Jewish people and the Jewish state of Israel, but on behalf of all of humanity by getting all this information out there through your work. So thank you, Yigal.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's always a pleasure, and look forward to seeing you in Israel on a future trip.
Soon enough, soon enough.
I mean, all right, wonderful. Everyone, thank you so much for watching another episode of The Pulse of Israel. I hope you are more enriched, informed, inspired by your Jewish identity and your identity as a freedom-loving person to make a better world. If this is something that you're going to be able to watch it. Definitely share it with others so as many people as possible can watch this movie. And let's all be part of the change to humanity by strongly standing up for Israel, the Jewish people, and this war that we're really on the front line. Signing off from the eternal and ancestral homeland, the land of Israel, from our beautiful, biblical, wonderful, inspiring, and indivisible capital, Jerusalem, since King David's time. If you are not yet a subscriber, go to pulseofisrael.com, where you can receive the daily, belief-based, inspiring, politically incorrect truth that hardly gets seen anywhere else. And we are a donor-based organization. We are highly censored and shadow banned across all social media channels. So every once in a while, if you could just click on the donate button on pulseofisrael.com to assist our work as well. Shalom, everyone, and thanks for watching.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.